Sportishness presents.
Yeah. Sportishness presents our NFL prediction show. Our
Prediction Spectacular.
prediction spectacular. There we go.
Predictishness is. All right, so this is we're between weeks 12 and 13. So this is when the playoff hunt starts to get pretty serious, when we're getting into December, with next week's games, and that's when people make the run.
That's right.
So
and we want to get here in the at the 2/3 mark of the season because basically we want to look like we're kind of brilliant. I mean, if we're making these predictions on week 1, then we would be really going for the long bomb here, the Hail Mary pass of predictions. Right now, this is just kind of a good educated guess. So we're trying to show that we can make good educated guesses. So you want to talk about the NFC first?
yeah, let's start with the NFC. The NFC actually is the more complicated of the two conferences.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is a great deal more mystery.
I mean, at this point, I can count. I'm looking at it right now. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams that really aren't in competition. I mean, they technically still could be, but 5 realistically, you don't have much of a chance of making the playoffs. So 11 and 16, and the NFC East definitely can. Just work our way down the seeds from 1 to finish. So number 1 is Atlanta, who is currently 10-1, and
I think they're going to stay. There's no reason to expect them to fall off the bubble. I mean, they've won a lot of close games. I put them at about 90% for locking up the first seed.
Yeah, they're in a great shape right now to finish up in the NFC South. Tampa Bay's 4 games behind them. Right. They don't really have much of a chance at this point. You can kind of look at what they got left on the schedule, and sure, they've got some tough games coming up, but they've got they got New Orleans, and New Orleans is playing hot right now. It's a conference game for them. And Carolina, the Giants, Detroit, and Tampa Bay. And the Giants, you never know what you're going to get. So there's some tough games in there, but I think they're a safe bet to say they're in the playoffs and a 1 or 2 seed. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect to walk a lot of money from Vegas betting on Falcons taking the first seed.
Sure.
So number 2 seed. I think that's going to be 49ers, so I think does the rest of the NFL community.
Sure. And they embarrassed the crap out of the Bears last week or a week or 2 ago. So they look like they're for real.
Now, the thing about it, too, is they're also, I think, a reasonable lock for their division. So, that basically, I don't think it's a mystery that they're going to playoffs. I think it's probable they're going to be the number 2 seed. But, I think one asterisk to hang on it is how well they do against the Pats in the Patriots in Week 15. I think that that's going to be kind of a bellwether game.
Okay, fair enough. There are 2 games up in their division. With only 5 games left, 2 games is a long way to go at this point. So yeah. I think they're pretty safe in that spot. The Bears at number 3, and unfortunately they just lost to San Francisco. So I think they're same statistical record, but technically they have 1 more loss at this point. San Francisco, it looks like they still have a bye coming up.
See, now here's some divergence. I think that there's a chance that the Packers could pull some sneaky feet and sneak into taking the division. It's
definitely possible. That's actually a very tight conference or division in the NFC right now. Green Bay, you can't tell how they're going to play week to week. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. So,
well, I'm kind of an Aaron Rodgers fan, so I have to say that this is really me, just taking a wild guess here.
Sure.
But the other side of it is that, in my opinion, the Packers have a more winnable schedule than the Bears do through the rest. So I think that could be the difference maker.
Okay, fair enough. And if the Bears do fall out of that, it's one of these things where I think it's Green Bay and Chicago are both going to the playoffs.
Yes.
It's just a matter of their seeding.
Exactly, whether they're going to be 3 or 5. Because I have the Bears at the 5th seed.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Jumping ahead there.
No worries. So the Giants are in an interesting place. They split the division with Dallas. So if Dallas catches up, then there's like a tiebreaker,
right,
that both teams could legitimately win. They've already beaten Washington once, and they're playing Washington this week.
Right.
So if they beat Washington, well, this win-loss will be too far apart, I think, for Washington to come back. But even if they do, they'd have to be 1 game over the Giants to get that spot. So it's a really important game for the Giants coming up this week, and I think if they win it, they're pretty much a lock at this point.
That's what I'm thinking, and you know what? I mean, RG3, he's a superhero, but I think that the way the math is going to work out, the Giants are going to get the number 4 seed.
Okay. Here's where it just gets messy.
Well, to me, actually, as I looked at these more, I realized that really, as complicated as it is, it's really 6 teams playing, or I'm sorry, 6 teams playing for the number 6 seed.
Yes.
And I tell you what, in my opinion, the Seahawks, they've got only 2 tough games. The rest are pretty winnable. The Buccaneers have 3 tough games: Denver, New Orleans, and Atlanta. The Vikings have the Packers twice and the Bears and the Texans. So they by far have the worst schedule of the bunch. So I'm actually counting the Vikings out because I think that while they're a decent team, I just don't think they can stand up that schedule.
Okay.
The Redskins, they've got 1 tough game. The Giants, the rest are very winnable. Cowboys, I think, are done. I just sorry to bet against your team.
It's fair. They've played badly. A lot of that Redskins game last weekend was close on paper.
Yeah,
the score was, but nothing about that game was close.
Right, exactly. And then New Orleans. I still count New Orleans into the playoff race, even though for New Orleans to win that 6th seed would be a Cinderella story.
Right.
But this is Drew Brees, and Drew Brees has been playing his heart out. The whole team, considering how they were, gutted by all the suspensions, all the drama over the headhunting scandal. Sure. I mean, they played their heart out this year. So, but you know what? I don't believe in Cinderella stories, at least not this year. I'm actually going for the Redskins to be the number 6 seed out of that mess.
Okay. That's not, Seattle has played pretty well this year. And they definitely, they deserve where they're at right now.
Yeah.
In the NFC. Washington has gotten hot all of a sudden, and I think they've got a legitimate chance to if they continue to play well, to work their way up. I think Tampa Bay's hopes end this weekend with the Broncos. If the Broncos beat them, 4 games left, other teams will advance past them. It'll be really, really at that point, instead of controlling their own destiny, they'll have to hope for a lot of teams to start losing.
Exactly, and they still have the New Orleans and Atlanta games behind that.
Right,
it just works against them.
Exactly,
schedule.
Like you said, the Minnesota Vikings are in the NFC North. It's the black and blue division. Over half their games are in it, so they control their fate. But I don't think.
Yeah, sure.
I think they get pinballed around a bit there.
Exactly. And I control my fate standing in front of a semi. But.
Sure. Yeah, I think Dallas continues to fall. Tony Romo most interceptions this year. Jerry Jones will not give up playing general manager. Right. So I think basically the Dallas Cowboys don't finish well. They finished 3rd in the NFC East. I think Garrett is fired. And the Cowboys will try to go again next year.
Right.
New Orleans, it's one of those things I'd like to put them on the board in that 6th seed, but I think they waited 1 game too many to start making their run.
Yeah.
I think they're going to come close, and it's going to be one of these things. I think on the last day of the year they'll be in contention, but like 3 teams will have to do magical things for them to slide in.
See, I agree with you too. I mean, there is a possibility the math could work out, but to me, the Redskins are the safer bet in this mix, particularly how easy their schedule is, and the fact that they're going against the Giants, who I'm certain is locked up for that. I don't really think the game against the Giants matters quite as much.
Right. Well, it's kind of weird. I feel the other way. I think that for the Redskins, that's the defining game of the season. If they win that game, then I think they can cruise in on their schedule and actually potentially take the East. I don't think they will, but I think that's a really big game. I think their season kind of pivots around this coming Sunday for me. So the Giants and the Redskins game, in my mind, is a critical game. Mm-hmm. I think that game, in my mind, decides who wins the NFC East. And also, I think it also decides that 6th playoff spot for the Redskins. If they lose it, it's like Tampa Bay. 1 loss, any loss at this point, if you're in the wild card hunt for that 6th seed, I think puts you out of it if everybody else does well. Mm-hmm. So it puts them in a really tough position. So we'll see what happens. It's also a Shanahan-led team, and Shanahan-led teams tend to collapse in the on the drive to the playoffs.
Yeah, they sure did in the Broncos Shanahan era. Well, okay, so then to wrap it up here, I'm saying Falcons 1st seed, 49ers 2nd seed, Packers 3rd seed, right. Giants 4th seed, Bears 5th seed, and Redskins 6th seed.
All right, so for me, I'm pretty close to where you're at. So I'm Atlanta, San Francisco, Chicago, Giants, Green Bay. So I flipped over the two NFC North teams, and I'm also going to go with Washington. And I said before, New Orleans may have waited a game too long. They have the same schedule, the same record as the Washington Redskins. But like you said, the Washington Redskins have a pretty easy schedule, and that Giants game, that really, if they win that Giants game, all of a sudden only one back of the Giants. Statistical tiebreaker. It comes down to other factors besides the head-to-head matchups. So
and New Orleans actually is facing the Falcons and the Giants, so they've got one additional tougher game.
Yeah.
So, but you know what? The other side of it is, if the New Orleans manages to squeak into that final spot, they are going to deserve being there in spades.
Yes.
And they will all of a sudden become a favorite for me in terms of perhaps getting to the conference game.
So, like John Mack likes to say that, December is the month when you start getting your separation. The teams that are going somewhere and the teams that aren't. So, right now things are a little tight, but, the playoffs are on the line and people start playing it up. The intensity level goes up week after week in December. So, I don't see any mix-ups coming. But I do see some really great football games coming up.
Yeah, it's going to be something to watch. Absolutely, no doubt.
Cool. AFC.
Okay, well, you know what? I don't think it's any mystery. Actually, the direct contrast, of course, between the NFC and the AFC is the AFC has a lot less mystery to it. I mean, there's some hopeful mystery for us as Bronco fans, but really it's pretty fixed, I think.
Okay.
Number one seed, Texans.
Yeah, they're playing really well this year. Yeah, they had a hard game last week. And the last couple of weeks they've been a little shaky, but they've earned their spot.
Right. The other side of it too is that their hardest game coming down the stretch is actually going to be the Patriots in Week 14. The rest of their schedule is such that I don't really see them being at risk of losing their relative separation on the win-loss record. And there's absolutely no doubt that I mean, I don't know if they're technically a lock right now for their division, but 99.9% certainty that they're a lock on their division.
Okay. No, I think it's a fair assessment. Something interesting that it keeps coming up, even when we're on the NFC side of the fence. There's a team that we always talk about. The Patriots. The record, sure, they're the 3 seed technically right now, but man, they are a really good team. Yeah. Just year after year, it's just like it's a Belichick-led team with Tom Brady at the helm as a quarterback, and every conversation, week 15 they got to play the Patriots. This NFC team does. We didn't talk about the other teams, but the Patriots are a roadblock to everybody.
Right, exactly.
They came here and destroyed us.
Well, I mean, what team in the last decade or even the last 15 years has more playoff experience? I mean, let's not talk about Super Bowls, just playoff experience, right?
Right.
So the thing about it is that, this is a tough team, and particularly in this salary cap, NFL, to maintain. I really think actually the Patriots deserve to be thought of as the greatest dynasty that football's ever produced. Why? They may not have won as many back-to-back trophies, but they have been there year after year, and to do that in the salary cap league, the era of free agency, to maintain that caliber of play for this many years, I just don't know any team that can measure up to that.
No, and they do it with the exception of their quarterback. I've done it with a pretty widely varied cast on offense and defense year after year after year.
Absolutely.
So, and right now, that's actually my 2-pick is New England. I think New England worked its way up to a 2-pick.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, they're playing tough, and you beat teams by 59 points. They humiliated the Jets. The Jets definitely beat themselves in the first half of that football game, but the Patriots are still a great team. In spite of the Jets' mistakes, they still went and scored points after that. So the Patriots, like you say, they got a lot of experience. They know what's at stake. Tom Brady isn't a quarterback who makes a lot of mistakes. They are a powerhouse, and Baltimore has been shaky a lot lately. So now Ray Lewis might be coming back for the Broncos game.
Yes.
That just hit the wire. So if it does, that might change things up. But ever since they lost to Ray Lewis, the defense hasn't been the same.
No, it hasn't.
And I think everybody can agree on that. And the offense has been the same, which is good Flacco, bad Flacco. You don't know what you're going to get week to week. So if Ray Lewis comes back, for the Broncos game and helps them get a couple wins at the end, maybe Baltimore holds on to its spot. But if not, or Baltimore continues this kind of erratic play, yeah, I think they fall. They fall down to the 3 seed.
Well, wow. I actually I want to put the Broncos actually at the 2 seed. I wanted to put the Broncos at the 2 seed because I think that despite the wobbling, that they're going to be able to pull themselves together.
Okay.
I also think, though, that the Ravens actually have a really tough stretch coming up.
They do.
They've got Pittsburgh, Washington, Denver, Giants, Cincinnati, all kind of mid-range or better teams that can really
good teams or hungry teams.
Yeah,
all of them.
Exactly. So there are a lot of teams looking to make the Ravens' life hell, and so I you know what? Broncos, I think, deserve the number 2 spot because if they can do what they should be able to do against the Ravens and they win this game like I think they're going to win the game against Tampa, the rest of their schedule is entirely winnable.
Absolutely.
And so by virtue of that record, I have to, and see, here's the funny thing is, I don't really know even how to compare the Broncos and the Patriots and the Ravens at this point, quite frankly.
Well, and that's a challenge because the Broncos haven't been playing high-quality teams, high-caliber teams for the most part.
Exactly.
And so where are they? I don't know. The last time they played what I felt was a solid contender was the Patriots.
Right, and
that wasn't very good for us.
No, it was a bad day. It was a bad day. So all I can say is that I think they have the capability of being able to build up enough record to be able to get to that number 2 spot.
Okay.
What the other guys do, though, is a mystery to me.
Fair enough. I struggle with this a little bit. Of course, being a Denver fan, I want to see Denver finish as high as possible. Home field advantage, the first week bye, all of those things are really great to have. But what the Broncos haven't proven to me is that they can pass or run consistently, period, against anybody. Some games are great, games are good, some games are bad, and their defense has been generally pretty good, but we haven't been playing good teams. And I've talked about this a lot over the years. I always looked at the NFC East, the old NFC East, as kind of the proving ground for a theory that if you play good teams, you get better.
Right.
And then when you go play outside your division, you're already a tough division and you can play hard and you're competitive. NFC North is kind of like that right now.
Right.
The AFC West is not. So for 6 games of the year, we play a bunch of scrub teams. I hate to say it, Chargers fans. As good as a team you should have been this year that you weren't. And the few times that we have marqueed against what are Tier A teams this year, we kind of got spanked.
Right.
The Falcons game, which was, an early game in the season. Everything has held down. And I said this before, and I'll say it again. I think we played them today. We would see a more competitive game. It got close at the end, but I think we would have had a game where it was close all the way through. But I consistently see the Broncos not able to drive the football. The running game's in shambles. Marino had a great 1 week.
Right.
But Marino's long-term history is that's the only good game of professional football he's ever played. So can he keep doing it? If so, that changes the equation. So for me, the Broncos have to prove something. And this is and again, this is a great week to do it. Tampa Bay's a team that's hungry, thinks they have a chance. They've won some games in a row now.
Exactly. They're on an upswing, so they've emerged as a potential stalking horse. See where the Broncos are.
Sure.
But really, it's not going to be until the Ravens game, I think.
That we know for sure.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to beat the Ravens to make up that game and get the tiebreaker. Right. So if we lose to the Ravens, then we're kind of in that situation where even if we tied them, we'd lose the tiebreaker and get out. We'd have to beat them by a whole game at that point. And I don't think that's feasible with only 5 games left. So, but we definitely control our destiny. We got, statistically after the break, we had the easiest schedule in the league. And you're right, the Ravens were at the time the only tough game. Now that the Bucs are playing a little harder, that's also a game.
Right.
But they play hard. They beat the Buccaneers. They beat the Buccaneers convincingly. I might change my mind.
Right.
They 17-9 it against the Buccaneers, and they look ugly doing it again.
Right.
It's the Ravens, and they're talking about Ray Lewis coming back for the Broncos game, and it's Ray Lewis.
Yeah.
And the Ravens are hungry for a Super Bowl because they've got players like Suggs and Lewis who are on the back ends of their careers, and they want that ring. You know?
And by the way, I apologize for not having this name on my lips, but the Broncos just signed a former San Diego Chargers running back, largely on the basis of his ability for pass protection.
Good.
So, there's an interesting bit. He's
I
also
told you at the deadline we should have picked up a running back.
Yes.
Nobody listens to me.
Yes. Exactly.
In fact, I'm pretty sure nobody's listening to me right now either.
So number 3 seed, by the way.
Okay. I'm sorry. I kind of I did my 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, you did. Okay.
Yeah.
So, so my 2 seed is the Broncos. My 3 seed, I think the Patriots are going to maintain their position.
Okay.
And then I have the Ravens down at the 4 seed. But you know what? I want to tell you, I think that it's like a 51 to 49% how that's going to work out. I mean, I'm 51% hopeful that the Broncos are getting the 2 seed.
Okay. I hear you. It's a question mark. Are we a quality team?
Right.
That's the question.
Right.
We don't know.
All right. So number 5 seed, I'm actually picking the Colts for that, but I don't think there's a lot of mystery in that. However, I also think that the 2 games against the Texans could ruin their playoffs. They've got 2 remaining games against the Texans.
Wow, that's tough.
And so that basically means that they've got must-win games with Detroit, Tennessee, and Kansas City to kind of round out their schedule and keep them in the upper end of the win-loss record.
And that's a challenge, when you get to the point in the season where you still got a lot of games to play, and every game starts turning into a must-win game. The pressure just starts ratcheting up. Luck's a first-year quarterback,
right?
So now we get to see how he handles that kind of situation.
But he has been good.
He's been great. There's no doubt about it.
Wow, it's exciting to watch. I just want to take a moment to say, year after year, there are all these Heisman Trophy winners that are bandied about as the next the next coming of football. And, I don't know. In my opinion, winning the Heisman Trophy is almost a guarantee of failure in the NFL.
It has been mostly like that, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. So,
and we've talked about this before, too, where it seems like for most positions, there's a series of drills that they run at the combine and and other spring training camp kind of stuff where they know how good their running back's gonna be, how strong the defensive lineman is, his kinds of moves. But it seems like drafting quarterbacks is still more luck than more art than science. I don't want to say necessarily luck. It's kind of weird because it seems like most other positions, skill positions in football, are mostly about draft, about science. Now, of course, there are exceptions. Rod Smith being a great example of that where, was he even drafted or was he 7th round or something? I think
something, yeah.
But he was either at the bottom of the pile or wasn't picked up. And Super Bowl rings.
Right, exactly.
So
Andrew Luck, I think, is exciting, and RG3 and all the other crop of great quarterbacks, Dalton and Stafford. I mean,
they talk about the draft of '86.
Right. You know what? Right now, I think we've got probably one of the strongest classes of quarterbacks throughout the league that I can remember watching.
For a long time, yeah. Since '86, I would say.
But here's the thing. The thing for me with the Colts is that I think we're going to see how whether or not Indianapolis got their money's worth by how the Colts finish up this season, and whether Andrew Luck can maintain that super high caliber of game determining play. He seems to be a guy who can shape the flow of play. So can he maintain that? And this is where we're going to know whether or not Indianapolis did the right thing of throwing their season by the wayside last year to get this guy.
The Colts are supposed to be rebuilding this year. They let go of coaches. They let go of Manning.
Right.
They let go of a lot of their, well, I don't say a lot, but they let go of some significant skill position players. So I think that this year, everybody was just hoping that the Colts would develop their team.
Right.
And all of a sudden, hey, we're talking about them in the playoff hunt.
Right.
So I think at this point, whatever happens, even if they lose every game from this point forward, this has been a great year for the Colts, an unexpectedly great year.
Mm-hmm.
If they make it into the playoffs first year in a rebuilding year,
right.
Well, that, good on them.
Right.
I'm not sure how competitive they honestly are. They've had some pretty ugly losses. I'm not sure how competitive they are going deeper into the playoffs. But, you got a rookie quarterback. You get him some playoff experience. And then year 2, you can just, you can start the season off by saying, wow,
Right.
Let's fix, let's twiddle the bits.
Exactly.
And not sit there and have to redesign the team.
No, but by the way,
Twiddle the bits okay to say on television, national television?
Twiddle the bits, yes.
Okay, just checking.
Now, we kind of jumped into talking about the Colts in a way, because actually what I wanted to say is I really see there being three teams contending for the two playoff spots. The Colts, the Bengals, and the Steelers.
Okay.
But clearly I've said, the Colts for the number 5 spot. So basically that leaves then the number 6 spot, and I'm putting the Bengals actually above the Steelers on that.
Okay.
Now, the reason, I think that the Steelers have the easier schedule than the Bengals. However, I believe in Dalton. And I believe in the way that team has kind of gelled this year in a way I haven't seen the Bengals, since maybe the Boomer era, right?
Sure.
They've got 3 games I think that are absolutely critical: San Diego, Pittsburgh, and Baltimore. They've also got these Dallas and Philadelphia wins that I think are entirely winnable for them. I think that the Bengals are clearly a better team than Dallas, actually. And Philadelphia, I mean, if they can't... Philadelphia is kind of their Kansas City game,
Yeah, they're in bad shape. Andy Reid's not going to be coaching for them next year. I think everybody knows that now.
Right. So the thing about it is that even though the Steelers have the easier schedule, and we're going to see this weekend when they play Baltimore, really, how much in contention the Steelers really are. Again, using Baltimore as kind of the stalking horse, but I think it's actually likely that Baltimore is going to win this game against the Steelers. And I think that, to me, is going to further bolster my case for the Bengals being the better team and capturing that number 6 seed.
Okay, actually, we're on the same page there, but for different reasons. So, like you, I think there's only a few legitimate teams in contention for the remaining 2 playoff spots. Quite frankly, I only think there's 4 teams that even have a chance for the last 2 spots. Mm-hmm. So basically, there's only 8 teams in total in the AFC that are legitimately looking for the playoffs.
Right.
So given that the 4 teams that are kind of that aren't going to be winning their divisions are the Colts, the Steelers, the Bengals, and the Dolphins. I'm looking at these last couple teams, and like you were just talking about with Pittsburgh. The Pittsburgh has a big game coming up, but their quarterback is hurt. Their backup quarterback is playing badly right now. They're banged up. I think right now that on the separation front, they're falling off. Right now, they're not a team that looks strong right now. They look weak in the league, and I think they're going to be the vultures are going to pick them apart. So I'm taking Pittsburgh off the pile completely as a contender.
Really? Okay.
I just don't think they got. I don't think they got the mojo right now with what they have left on their schedule.
Nice.
Looking at the Dolphins, a few weeks ago, Dolphins won a couple games, big games, and they was like, well, now let's start thinking about the playoff hunt. But then they just, the Dolphins again, unfortunately, fell off. Lost their game last week, and they haven't been looking very good. So, and they've got a losing record. They're 5-6 right now.
Right.
And given how tight the other teams are, I just don't. Again, like the Steelers, I don't think they're going to make a good solid run at it. So basically, given that there are only 2 teams left and only 2 spots, it's just a matter of which ones fit in which. I think I agree with you. The Colts will take the 5 seed based on their schedule and how well they've been playing. And that leaves almost, I don't want to say by default, football still got to be played, games still have to be won. But the Bengals are playing hard.
They are.
And they have a chance, and they know they have a chance. And their defense has been really good. So the Bengals to me seem like a team that they're going to accidentally they're the team nobody's talking about that I think is going to surprise people by not only getting to the playoffs, but potentially, maybe, surprising that depending on where they seed up, surprising that 3 or 4 team in the first round.
Of course, every matchup in the playoffs is a hard matchup. Sure. There are no gimme playoff games.
It's a new season.
Right.
Once the playoff starts, it doesn't matter what happened before.
But I think actually, whoever wins that AFC conference game is going to have gone through such a trial by fire that, my money is going to be on the AFC team for the big game.
Okay.
And for the very reasons we're talking about here, I'm not really trying to make a Super Bowl
prediction at this point.
I'm just saying though that I really believe in the teams that are in the AFC more than I do in the NFC.
Okay.
Not to say that that the Falcons or the 49ers. Well, you know what Actually, no. You know what? I do have to admit, I've got questions about the Falcons. I don't believe their record. I think they've been. I don't know. There's something that just doesn't quite gel right.
I hear you.
I think they're going to fall apart.
And there's some, and I think there's some buzz. Sports writers, Yahoo, ESPN, those guys have been kind of that has been said several times now.
Yeah. The 49ers, I want to believe in the 49ers, but I really don't know why the hell they made the quarterback change up that they did. I don't think that quarterback change deserved to be made, no matter how much success they're having with Kaepernick. I can't remember how to pronounce his name, but Kaepernick. That's it.
Kaepernick, that is.
He I watched a game this weekend. He looked good. He looked solid, but I don't know that they needed to make that change. And so that hangs an asterisk on these guys. The Giants, they're all over the place. The Packers, they're all over the place. The Bears are probably the most solid performer in the whole league, but we're talking about the Jay Cutler,
Right. Well, then San Francisco destroys them.
Right.
So, yeah, I think if, like you said, well, this team's better than this team, and that team is better than that team. I think you end up with this Mobius snake of.
Right.
The head eats the tail eventually.
Right.
And so. Where that's going to lead, I don't know. I think the AFC, we've talked about this before, the AFC, I think, has a much clearer picture of who stands on whose shoulders.
Yeah, the Texans are a complete team. Would you not agree?
I would agree. They are playing hard. And even when they play bad, they still manage to win. And that's fundamental football.
Ravens, they do have an asterisk with Joe Flacco, any given Sunday kind of thing.
Yeah, they're hard to tell.
But the bottom line is that, their defense, despite their statistics, is still, a leading defense, Patriots, nobody's going to hang an asterisk on them.
No.
And the Broncos, they get an asterisk. We've already talked about that. The Colts and the Bengals, though, I'm not going to hang asterisks on these guys because, you know what? It's not an asterisk situation. It's a developing narrative of how these teams are going to go. And no matter what, I think we're going to be hearing about Andrew Luck and we're going to be hearing about Dalton, regardless.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's one of the things I don't think I would feel comfortable making a Super Bowl pick at this point. It would be a complete guess, especially on the NFC side of things. But I'm thinking that after this coming weekend, the Week 13 games, because there are some games here that, like you say, like the teams that are left, there's an opportunity to separate. And for teams that have huge question marks, like the Broncos, who are they?
Yeah, when I look down actually my list of, I have a column here of key games. I was surprised after the fact, looking back at this, that all the key games are Week 14 and Week 15. So really, in just the next couple of weeks, we're going to know, I think, a great deal about how this playoff is going to look. Okay, so just to roll down through it.
Sure.
On the AFC side, I'm looking at the Texans, the Broncos, the Patriots, the Ravens, the Colts, and the Bengals.
All right, so I'll go Houston, New England, Baltimore, Denver, Indianapolis, and the Bengals.
Okay.
So we're not terribly far in either one of these, actually. It's interesting that a team that I almost always consider as a playoff contender, like the Patriots, is the Steelers. They're just always a tough team.
Right.
But without Roethlisberger, even with him this year, they haven't looked terribly good.
Yeah, they're missing some pieces. So I don't think they're a legitimate contender this year. As far as confidence, the NFC, I feel like I could be completely wrong on the NFC top to bottom. The whole thing could shuffle up in 2 weeks. The AFC, though, I'm reasonably sure we're at where we're at. I may not have the sixth order right, but I think those are the 6 teams. The only thing I'm certain of in the NFC is that the Falcons are going to be the number 1 seed. That's the only thing I can say for certain.
Okay. Do you want to even just make a guess? Just pick 2 random teams for the Super Bowl?
For the Super Bowl?
Sure. Just not being held to it. Just like your gut instinct right now, so we can like go down and say, "Oh my God, man, you're wrong." It's the Chiefs versus the Lions,
God,
because the Chiefs technically can still make the playoffs. In fact, I don't think at this point any team is mathematically eliminated. I don't think anybody is showing as clinching and eliminating. So even the Chiefs can still get into the playoffs.
The problem for me is that I'm a Broncos partisan, so I want to say Broncos in the Super Bowl.
But is that fair to the Sportishness fans? Do we even care that it's fair to the Sportishness fans?
No, I love you fans, but no, I need actually another week.
I think that's a fair answer. There's not enough data yet.
Not enough data.
So, all right. Anything else?
No. I think that's it. Well, folks, there it is. We've put ourselves out on the line with our predictions. The Sportishness Prediction Bureau. Yes, you can see our predictions right there. So, we'll see just how wrong we are. We'll have to have a follow-up show here at the end of the season. All right. You guys have a great night.